Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a chainmail bow tie. I'm going to be using rubber neoprene rings, 1/4 inch 16 gauge, and I'm also going to be using bright aluminum rings, 1/4 inch 18 gauge. For the knot, I'm using bright aluminum 1/4 inch 16 gauge rings. However, you could also do it with the 18 gauge rings. You could also use anodized aluminum rings if you want to add a bit of color. So anyway, follow along with the video. I really hope that it makes sense and enjoy it. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically start to create a piece of European 6-in-1 chain. However, instead of adding 6 closed rings, or rubber rings in this case, to the first unit of chain, I'm only going to add 5. And the reason for that is that as I start to build this pattern forward, I'm going to be working a pyramid formation, and that 5th ring is going to form one corner of the pyramid. So as you can see now, I'm just going to continue adding to that European 6-in-1 chain until I reach a total of 18 units long. And on that 18th unit, I'm only going to add 1 rubber ring instead of 2, and that's going to form the opposite corner of the pyramid formation that I'm creating, along with that 5th rubber ring on the first unit that I started off with. Now we're going to start building horizontally onto this chain, and I want to continue the pyramid pattern as I go forward. So I'm going to take an open ring with 2 rubber rings on it instead of 3, as you would if you were building just a rectangular sheet, and I'm going to go through 3 rings on the outside, not including that 5th free hanging ring, and close that up like so. Now I'm going to continue adding to that 1 open ring and 1 closed ring at a time. So I'm going to open this ring, add a closed ring to it, put it through both of those closed rings and 3 on the existing chain that I've created, and close that. Now you can see how this pattern is taking shape and creating a pyramid formation as we go. And when we get to the last unit of that second row, and all the rows as we're building our decreasing pyramid, we're actually not going to add any extra rubber rings. We're just going to put that 1 last aluminum ring in place with no rubber ring on it. And now I'm just going to continue building horizontally in the same way that I added the second row. Now when we get to our first row that's 6 units long, we're going to build out rectangularly now, so we're not going to continue that pyramid formation. This means adding 3 closed rings instead of 2 to the first unit of this row. And we can just continue building out horizontally until we've got 3 rows that are 6 units long. So I'm going to insert a graphic here just to show you exactly what I mean. If you have a look at this freeze frame, this is what we want to get to before we start continuing the pyramid out from there again to make it symmetrical. I have a row that's 8 units long, and that's part of the pyramid, and then I have 3 rows that are 6 units long, and those are all rectangular. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and start building the pyramid out again. We're basically going to do the opposite of what we were doing when we were building the shrinking pyramid, and we're going to put 3 closed rings on each row now when we started off, and go through 2 on the previous row. Then when we add our next unit, we're going to put 1 closed ring on it. We're going to go through 2 of the 3 closed rings from the previous link, and we're going to go through 3 of the closed rings on the previous row, including the 2 that your first link went through. And when you get to the last unit, instead of not putting any closed rings on it, you're going to put 1 rubber ring on it. And this will build that pyramid formation out now. We're building an increasing pyramid to make this piece of sheet symmetrical. Now once you've completed the last row, which should also be 18 units long so that it's the same size as the first row that we did, we're gonna add a border of half Persian 4:1 to the ends of the sheet. So to do this, I'm basically going to take an open ring and I'm gonna flip the sheet over so I'm looking down on it, and I'm gonna add a unit of half Persian 4:1 by going up through the second and first rings of the sheet and then down through the third and fourth rings of the sheet. And then I'm gonna close that ring and just continue doing that all the way to the top. So with the second ring here, now I'm gonna go up through the third and second ring, and then down through the fourth and fifth rings. And if you don't already know how to make the half Persian 4:1 chain, knowing how to do that will probably make this a bit easier, and I do have a separate video where I demonstrate that in a lot more detail. So as a prerequisite to sort of doing this project, it would be really helpful if you know how to make European 6-in-1 sheet and half Persian 4:1, and I have separate videos explaining both of those luckily. So check those out if this isn't making sense to you so far. Once I've completed the border on one side, I'm simply gonna go and do the same thing to the other side. Once you've completed the half Persian 4:1 border on both sides of the bow tie, like I said earlier, they take a bit of manipulation to get them lying nicely, and it is a pretty tight pattern, so just stretch them and get everything lying in place nicely. Now you can put the bow tie aside, and we're gonna make a piece of 2x2 chain that's long enough to wear around your neck. So this means leaving a little bit of extra slack in case you're wearing it with a big collared shirt or something like that. And once you've got it to length, add a hook to one end of it. Now you can put that to the side as well, and we're gonna make the knot of the bow tie. I'm gonna make a piece of European 4:1 sheet to use for the knot, and it's gonna be slightly longer in the middle of the sheet and get slightly smaller towards the sides. So I'm just, again, using that sort of pyramid formation like I used earlier, but this time in a European 4:1 sheet to decrease the length of the sheet as I work my way out. Now in total, this sheet is going to need to be 11 rows long if you're using the same size rings that I am. Now we're going to take the bow tie and we're going to put the side that we want facing out when it's finished down on top of the sheet that we're going to use for the knot. And then we're going to take the chain and we're gonna put it roughly centered over the bow tie. Now it's as simple as taking that knot, folding it over, and weaving it shut. The step isn't as hard as it looks, but it does take a little bit of extra time and patience, and make sure that as you're attaching that sheet together, you straighten the knot out over the bow tie, you get the chain running nice and parallel with the bow tie. Just really take your time, go carefully here, and it'll work out nicely if you do it right. I wanted my knot to stay in position, so I actually wove some of the loose rings on the knot to the bow tie itself. You can do this if you want, just make sure that they go through the same rings on either side to keep everything symmetrical. Now that's really all there is to it. There's a ton of variations you could come up with in terms of coloration, knot style. You could even adjust the size of the bow tie if you want something even bigger or smaller and more classic looking. So feel free to experiment and come up with a design that looks right for you. I really hope you guys enjoyed this project. I also posted some other videos talking in more detail about some of the skills I used in this project, so if you are struggling, make sure you also check those out as well. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I'll have a lot more videos like this coming out soon.